Hello and welcome to the Near and Queer to My Heart podcast. I'm your host, Amanda G. Thank you so much for joining us. We are back. We took a little break to live a little life, to get our shit together, to coordinate a few things, to start working on some more episodes for y'all. This episode I'm so excited about. This is comedian, author, storyteller, Kelly Stone. She's done it all. She's lived a life, and she tells us all about it. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to get started. Here's Kelly Stone, y'all. I'm really excited for this guest. This is someone I've known for a few years. It's been a little longer than that. Kelly Stone's here with us.
Hello. Yeah, I think we met in 2015.
Oh my God. I would have said 2017 or 2012. I don't know how time works ever. But Kelly was in New Orleans for 4 months, so I met her out doing comedy and just hanging out. And actually, it's your fault that I met my ex-girlfriend of 5 years.
How is it my fault?
Yeah, we went to Kelly because Kelly's hooked up with everything, and we'll get into Kelly's life. But I'm going to tell this quick story. So Kelly got hooked up with tickets to something called Mom's Ball. Which you're not from New Orleans. Mom's Ball, they do this huge ball for Mardi Gras, and then they do this huge ball for Halloween. So they have this huge Halloween party. Everybody gets dressed up. Kelly was emceeing it, was doing jokes at it, and she got 10 tickets. And she said, you want one of the tickets? You want to come? I said, yeah, I'll go. And I went, and it was Halloween, so we were dressed up. I was dressed up as a sailor. My ex was dressed up as a pirate, and she came up to me and she said, "Oh, I've seen you do stand up. You're funny, and you're beautiful." And I said, "This is what I said." I said, "Look me up on Facebook." I'm slick. And but she did, and then we dated for 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. So then that should be the time and math for you right there. If you can connect having met her through me.
Yeah. Maybe I was trying to forget about that.
Yeah, man, if I could go back to Mom's Ball, that was a great time.
That night was weird.
It was weird.
Yeah, not anything to do with meeting my ex, but it was just a weird performance space because it was kind of like a party with a DJ and everybody's dancing and, people were drinking and probably were doing a lot of drugs. And then they were like, now we're going to have these performances and everyone needs to focus and be quiet. And it was like, how do you do that? But you were able to wrangle people.
Well, because I was emceeing the costume contest. So, people want to show off their costumes.
Yeah, and they want to win.
Yeah, I think there was money involved. I have no idea. It's funny. Isaac Cosell, he remembers the Mom's Ball too. He was in that group.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I just invited a bunch of comic friends.
And we were all like, oh my God, a free thing to do. Yeah, we're all going.
Yeah. Because I think tickets were like $25 each. So that was like $250 value or whatever it was.
That just popped into my head. I was like, oh, I got to blame her for this.
Sorry.
Great way to start off an interview. I'm like, it's all your fault. No, I don't know if you feel this way, like as a performer, and now I've been single now for a minute, and I'm trying to get out there and date, and I feel like it's because I'm so public. It's my obligation to not obligate. It's on me to approach. It's on me to ask somebody out. It's on me to do a lot of these things because people just feel like you're so public that they don't, and they're not necessarily intimidated. But I think I don't know. I feel like there's this weird thing. Like this last girl that I hung out with was like, I can't believe I'm hanging out with a professional comic. And I'm like, I'm not. I have a day job, so that means I'm not a professional comic. But I feel like if I didn't ask her out, she wouldn't have asked me out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see that. And I think for me, my last 2 relationships, which I'm very happily single and I'm not even trying at all to date anybody. But the relationship I had that concluded at the beginning of my New Orleans time was a very insecure person. And so they had a hard time with my fame, if you will. And we couldn't go anywhere without people knowing me or, and so it was really problematic. And then I later ended up in a relationship where it didn't bother them at all, where they would just happily, kind of sit quietly while I engaged, because anytime we were out anywhere, people would talk to me, But so I guess I don't really know for the initiation of a relationship from this, probably just because I reject everything right now. Like everyone that asks me like, hey, do you want to go get some food, and I can tell that it's because you like me like that, I'm always like, no. I think COVID really helped me see how much I like being alone. That's where I'm at.
COVID was the reverse for me. Like, I realized how much of an extrovert I am and how much of a struggle. I think a lot of people that like thought they were extroverts learned very quickly that they were introverts and that this was great and that they didn't, or people with like FOMO where they like felt like they had to be out and do things and be everywhere. And then all of a sudden there was nowhere to be. And they were like, oh, I actually like doing things in my home. I actually like being alone. And I was the opposite. I couldn't sit still. I had a very like claustrophobic kind of COVID.
Oh, wow. And I mean, we haven't talked about this yet, but I have two kids, and now they're 14 and 12. So I feel like I'm not alone. I've got these other people in my house and, they're really cool. And so I know a lot of people too in COVID were like really craving physical touch, like, because we weren't even hugging each other, and I still at least had people to like snuggle me, and granted not in like a gross sort of a way, because they're my kids, but I still have like physical touch, and I have that. So, and that's kind of, I'm happy with that right now. Like Team Stone, we're cool up in our house. I got a dog.
Yeah, I mean, just any like I think any in-person interaction is different than anything on Zoom or through a screen or anything like that. I think there's like this, and the same with like stand up. I've said this on a few episodes, but like doing stand up on Zoom, you miss this like personal connection with people that you really can't have unless you're in the same space with them and you can feed off their energy.
Yeah. No, I mean, and there's the vagina monologue, right? I was there in the room, like, uh, which is very different, birthing versus, stand up. But yeah, I think, yeah, being in a shared space really helps with a shared experience. And that's why sometimes too, it really sucks when people are like filming your comedy with their cell phone and then they post it trying to be helpful, but it's like, it seems super bad because it's way out of context of like, what was happening in that room,
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing stand up for?
My very first open mic ever was in November of 2006 in Philadelphia at Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia.
Wow. You remember the exact date and the moment.
Well, what's weird about it is, it was back in the MySpace days, and one of my friends recorded it. And so it's still on YouTube. So that's where I can like still see the day. And I believe it was posted on November 19th, 2006. And I ended up, my first son was born November 20th, 2007. So it was interesting. That was like my first baby. And it was about a year before that I had gone and watched an open mic because I had never really seen a comedy one. And I just kind of wanted to understand. And it took me about a year. And then I invited all my friends out, and I'm going to Helium and I'm signing up. And it didn't even occur to me that I might not make the list. Like, I just assumed like
Yeah, it's open mic. It's
open
open.
mic, right? But it's also it was the A club in Philly, so of course they can't like put anybody that wants on there. I get it. And then they also like reformat the list and stuff. But there was a kid, I think he was 16, who had been taking the train in from Jersey, and he was like, hey, do you think you're going to get on the list? And I was like, would I maybe not, and it was like his third or sixth week in a row of taking the train in from Jersey and signing up and not making the list. And he actually made the list too. So it was both of our first night. And now I'm not going to remember his name, but he's like one of the old guard like comics in Philly now.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool that our very first night was the same night in November of 2006.
Yeah, you had that camaraderie. Had you done performance before that, or was it just specific stand up that you were interested in?
No, that's a good question. No, I've always been a thespian. In fourth grade, I ended up cast as the ghost of Christmas Present, and I had purple hair and a Thriller shirt, and I like came out on stage, and I was like, "You've never seen anything like me before," with like a boombox. It was the '80s, and that like really like I loved being on stage. And then in junior high, I was in everything drama from sixth grade through eighth grade. I was the president of the drama club, and I competed in UIL with improv and duet acting and one act play and all that stuff. And in high school, I chose sports more than theater, but I still did one act. And then I kind of dropped all of that. And then in college, actually in graduate school, I auditioned for the Vagina Monologues. And I remember like just how thrilled I was after the audition. I ended up, getting a part, obviously. And I didn't know at the time that like they don't really turn anyone away from the Vagina Monologues. But I was cast as the woman who loved to make vaginas happy, the one with all the moans, because she's like a dominatrix for and then that like sort of rekindled it in me. And I'd been toying with stand-up. Jon Stewart was one of my muses. Having a show like The Daily Show or doing something that's like intellectual and comedic was really what I was striving for. I always wanted to have a talk show. And so I saw stand-up as a platform or an impetus to other stuff. So like being like a headliner in comedy clubs has never really been my goal, but I've seen it as a vehicle to do that.
Yeah, I always think that's interesting because a lot of people think, oh, you do stand up, that your goal is the Netflix special or the HBO special. And it's like a lot of people, that is not necessarily their goal. Sometimes their goal is to be a better comedy writer because they're working on a pilot or a character,
Right.
or, their goal is to do something like comedy adjacent. So
yeah, no, I mean, I have a master's degree in health education and I taught at the college level for a long time. And so I see a lot of what I do as edutainment. And I actually even was looking into it, and interestingly, Bill Cosby's dissertation was on edutainment with Fat Albert. Like that whole like series was designed to be educational and entertaining. And I was just on a book tour in August. That's the last time I saw you. And where I stayed in Philly was right across the street from Bill Cosby's house. I stayed at one of my really wealthy friends' houses, and he pointed it out, and he's like, yeah, that's Bill Cosby's house. And when they let him out recently, helicopters and all this stuff. So I was like, given his yard the ojo and the stink eye, and I was like, I'm gonna shit in his yard. But I did not, because I kept like,
I was like, well, what happened?
I know. Well, I knew I had to be fast about it if I was going to go like publicly shit in someone's yard. And so I would like work myself up so much and like staring at it like so mean and hard that then all of a sudden I would just have to shit right then. So I was like, I'm probably not going to make it to his yard.
Yeah, he probably also has a couple cameras, I would imagine.
I would have like been like, flipping him out. Like I would not have cared. What's he going to do?
Yeah. You make a good point.
Yeah. But part of that tour too, I ended up in Galveston, and I was walking through a cemetery where one of the headstones, they were so proud of their KKK membership that it was on the headstone. So I did piss on that grave.
Nice. Yeah, that one not as high a public image right now.
Right.
No helicopters around, so you had all the time to sit and wait for the right moment.
Yeah, I acted like I was taking a picture, and I just pulled over and I just like peed. Yeah, I felt pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I feel pretty proud of that as well. You're originally from Texas?
I am. I was born in Houston, moved around quite a bit as a small child, mostly due to poverty, and then ended up in Houston in 4th grade, and so that's where 4th through 12th grade, I was there. And then I moved to San Marcos, Texas in 1996 to work on my undergraduate degree, and lived in Austin for a little bit for grad school, and then moved up to Philly for more grad school. And I sure like school.
They trick us when we're younger, I talk about this all the time because like I am like, if I could go back in time, I would not get my my law degree. But when I was 18, you're told this, you got to go to college, you got to do that. And then when I'm 22 and they're like, we're going to throw you out in the real world. I was like, no fucking way. I'm going to go to more school. And
Right.
then when you are thrown out in the real world, you have so much debt and you don't know how to function in the real world.
Yeah, for me, I had 4 years off in between undergrad and grad school, and I actually worked in higher ed. And so I had to sit in on faculty meetings, and I was tired of being condescended to for being the only bachelor's level person in the room,
Oh, no.
Yeah. And
what a crime and a tragedy.
Right. It was so, I really hated it. And so I think, and that's always like I don't know, a socially acceptable. I mean, it's acceptable to quit a job whenever you can quit. You can say no anytime you want, right? But it's acceptable to leave for graduate school, right? And so that was kind of my out.
Yeah, because you're like, the real world, I don't like it. I'm just going to go back to that school thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like being condescended to. I'm tired. I get tired of being told to know my place. And I think as a woman, there's a variety of ways that society tends to do that. And it pisses
Hmm.
me off.
Yeah, no, one thing I've been at work, I noticed, and I try not to like, I don't want to chastise anybody because I don't think that's the right thing, but like, I notice a lot of women just say sorry for like no fucking reason. They're just like, sorry to bother you. Oh, sorry, this took a second. Sorry, I sat in this chair. It's like, you're not, like, don't be sorry if it's not something you should. I said, if I spill coffee on you, I am sorry and I'll apologize. But
Right.
like, if you're just in conversation and then you don't have to like constantly be saying sorry, but it's a thing. And I don't know how I got programmed in a lot of women because I do it too. That's why I noticed it because I was like, why am I saying sorry? Like I'm not sorry. I didn't do anything to be sorry for.
Right. No, there was one day in class. Most of my students were women because I taught in family and consumer sciences. So many of my students were looking for their MRS degree. But one day, there was some subject, and I swear it was 6 women in a row that like raised their hand to say something, and every one of them prefaced what they were saying with some form of an apology of like, maybe this is a silly question, or you've probably already covered this, or I'm sorry. But, and finally, like after the 6th one, I was like, do you guys hear yourselves? And I went through and like named and I'm like, don't apologize for seeking information or for engaging or for speaking.
Literally in the place where like this is what you're paying for this. Like you're here to learn, so fucking learn.
Yeah.
Like ask a question if you don't get something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I say that, people say too, like, oh, I know this is a stupid question. Like there are no stupid questions.
Right. Right.
I know that sounds trite too, but it's true. I'm like, it's not a stupid question. If you don't have the answer and I have the answer, asking me doesn't make the question stupid. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make me smart. It's just like, hey, we're humans functioning. I will give you this information. You will now have this information. You may give it to somebody else 5 minutes from now. Like, there's no, we don't have to preface it with that shit. I'm like, cut that stuff out. Cut out the word should. I sound very aggressive right now, but
Well, Stephen Covey, seek first to understand. I think that's a part of my philosophy too. I think with parenting and again with edutainment, right? Is like a lot of times people don't know until they know, and so sometimes we have to bring that to our attention that people are apologizing but there's a lot of things that people don't talk about. And we don't talk about it until we talk about it. And so that's why I try to be pretty transparent in a lot of the stuff that I bring up, because there's things that were surprising to me about my body and going through pregnancy or in depression, mental health, all these things. Like, and the more we talk, that's why I think the Me Too movement really caught so much wind, because that's what it is, right? It's like somebody says something and then they go, me too. And then the more that we talk about it, the more we talk about it.
yeah, 100%. Because, men don't realize this, but like, I mean, obviously, like the Me Too is, it's not something like that we're like surprised this is happening. And a lot of men were genuinely surprised, and it's like women, oh yeah, this happened, and like I used to like joke about like, oh, I moved out of New York because I was tired of getting groped on the subway, but it's like that's a real thing that happened to me pretty regularly, like regularly enough that like it shouldn't happen at all, but it's like,
Gross.
but you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, that's just what how you go on the subway and you're a woman and it's gonna happen, and some guy's gonna take his dick out, and like that's a thing you're going to see more than once in your life, and you're going to be like, oh, what a gross guy, but like then you move on even though that's like a trauma, and then he's finally talked to other people and they're like, that's happened to me too, and this is how I felt about it. And it's so interesting that some men I've talked to, I don't know why, like men, they're like so comfortable talking to lesbians, but like they're just like, wow, I didn't really think about that. And I'm just like, yeah, like this is an everyday constant thing that we have to be aware of and conscious of, and in a way that you don't have to, that you have the luxury of walking around this universe without that.
They have the luxury of a lot of things,
Mhm.
walking alone at night, and like all of these things
Yeah.
that we've been conditioned that, it's our fault, or we need to teach people not to rape. We need to teach people not to assault. Like if you're alone in an elevator with somebody, leave them alone, like it's not hard.
No, no, that sounded pretty simple to me. What was it like growing up in Houston? Like, just in Texas in general, but like, is that because you're a pretty like liberal person, and I think Houston's got liberal pockets, but like, every time I've been to Texas, like when I went to visit you in Texas a couple of years ago, I went to an Old Navy and some guy had a gun on his like hip, making sure that we all knew he had a fucking gun at Old Navy.
Right, right.
It was just a very weird, like culture shocky thing for me.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't always a liberal.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a violent household with a lot of poverty, and so my escapism and being away from home was my main goal. And so I was in every club, every student organization, like everything possible to be busy, busy and away from home. And so I also joined the youth group at my local Baptist church, and I ended up dating the Baptist pastor's son from 8th grade through 12th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I wrote and directed a Jesus play. I was the most outstanding girl camper at church camp for a couple years in a row. I've described this to people. I used to compete in like Bible sword drills, which is like where you have your Bibles and you're all standing in a line, and then they'll like call out like a verse like Matthew 7:1 or like whatever. That'd be actually a really easy one. And then you draw your swords and you hold your Bible out, no thumbs, and then charge. And it's like the first one to find the verse and step out like wins, like, so how well you know your Bible. So when I got to college, I didn't fully believe in evolution. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. You were like knee deep in
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. But there were some things that like led to question marks for me because like I said, the Baptist pastor's son. So his dad was my pastor, and there was a sermon that he preached my senior year. I was going off to college about how it's against God to move away from your church family for college. And I was like, that sounds odd.
Sounds real specific.
Yeah. And then he did one where like in Revelation, it says that, you can't calculate when the Lord's going to return. You can't know the hour or the day, but he had calculated the year, and that the year, doing all the math and everything on the screen, it turns out 1996 was when Jesus was going to return. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm going to miss my prom. And I was like, maybe I'm not as into this, So it really was me moving away from all of that and getting to Southwest Texas State University at the time. It's now called Texas State University, but it's always been known as like a party school. And that's where I kind of was more exposed to other people, and that I could sort of let my hair down and be myself. So yeah, so it was a little while. And I think that's what's made me a good educator, is because I understand where my students or where people are coming from. Like I get it. I've been there. And so I'm like, I'm going to need you to come a little this way. The riddle scale, I don't know if you're familiar.
No.
From it's, repulsion, and it's for like a homophobia riddle scale, but you can really kind of use it in a couple of different ways. But repulsion all the way to like nurturance, support, all this. And so tolerance is still on the negative side of the scale, and even acceptance, like I accept, but then it's like, what are you doing for advocacy, for support, for nurturance? So it's going, but if we can move someone from repulsion to tolerance, then that's still like positive movement.
All right, a couple of things. Number one, and I'm not poking fun. I'm just curious that like you heard a sermon where they stated that God wouldn't want you to move away from home for college. Were you like college didn't exist in like biblical times, or like any sort of questioning of the logic of that? Yeah, like I said, I'm not teasing about it. I get genuinely interested because I'm Jewish, and I'm like, I know Old Testament like backwards and forwards. And we're taught to question things, and we do question things. And a lot of it doesn't totally make sense. Like you first question Adam and Eve, they had 2 sons. How did their sons have wives? How are we not all products of incest? Like you start to, have these questions, and sometimes they have answers and sometimes they don't. But something that's that specific to like your situation in that moment, you had to have like some questions.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's where I was like teeter tottering, like, cause I was like on my way out. And if I hadn't moved to San Marcos, like to the 4-year institution, I was looking at moving to Paris, Texas,
No.
which, cause
Paris, Texas.
yes, they have a junior college there, but they fully fund their cheerleaders. And so, as a gal who needed to go to college on Pell Grants and all that, having a full funded scholarship even at a junior college was appealing. So all the places I was looking, like I wasn't looking in Houston. My goal was to always move away from my family. So yeah, so it didn't sit well with me. It still doesn't. And then I even have found old letters from my pastor that he sent to me while I was in college.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're so judgmental and like really gross.
Like judging you for leaving, or for this like sinful life that he assumes you were leading, or that you
Yes.
needed to come back and fall in line essentially.
No, basically that like it's clear that I'm not right for his son, that he, needs a more godly woman, yada yada yada. And now like that guy is the pastor of a large church in Houston, and he was a licensed minister when we were in high school. I would travel around and sit dutifully on
Oh
the
my
second
gosh.
row. Yeah, it was, I mean, yeah. So it's interesting. I've come a long way, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And my second question about that specific piece that you shared is, so 1996, he didn't know the day or the time. He knew the year though. So he had 365 days to predict this thing. What happened in 1997 when like that did not come to fruition?
I don't know, dude. I left. Like I moved. I wasn't even there. I don't even know that anybody even like called him on it.
Why not? I don't. Anytime anyone predicts that the world is ending, I'm like, this world better fucking end, or like, how do you still have followers?
I don't know. I mean, and this is kind of crazy. So the pastor had 4 kids. The oldest son was our youth minister. The second oldest son was our music director. The third was the one that I dated. And then the fourth was the daughter who was like the pretty, pretty princess. And the youth minister ended up in prison for molesting kids in
Oh my
our
god.
youth group. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. So I walked away and never looked back.
Yeah. I feel like I would have done the same given the opportunities. But it's good that you were able to like get away, because I feel like, for a lot of people it's hard because you're being pulled in one specific direction by somebody who wields a lot of power, and also just leaving in general, like leaving everyone that you know behind is difficult enough.
Right.
Like without that pressure.
Yeah, and I had a hard time because Houston, I mean, it is a big city. And so all I knew was, going to chain restaurants and being in traffic and, whatnot. And then I get to this small town in Texas, and the first semester was a difficult adjustment, but I did find my way, and I was a part of a residential college program. So we had classes block enrolled together, and I currently live in San Marcos, where I had moved to. Our river is 72 degrees year round, and it's a really big part of my life. And so I have a tattoo of the river. And yeah, and I moved back here from Philadelphia specifically because, it was actually in 2008, it was named the #1 place to raise a family by US News and World Report. And actually, it was before I was in that 4-month stint in New Orleans, I used to go for one of the comedy festivals there. I went like 6 years in a row leading up to that. And there was one day I was standing in the lobby of the hotel where I was staying, and I said something on the phone or whatever, and the gal from behind the desk walks around up to me. She's like, "Excuse me, did I hear that you said you live in San Marcos, Texas?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Didn't you guys only have like 1 murder last year?"
Real
And
specific.
yeah, it was so interesting. But like in New Orleans, it's like 1 a day, or it's pretty prevalent. And so it was so interesting to me that she was like, "Whoa, you live in like this really safe place."
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were able to like find your place. Like I said, you could have been just in Houston and not ever have left, because that's an easier thing than taking a chance. And I do want to ask, because you identify as bisexual, correct?
Yes.
We asked the coming out question here as more of like a journey. Like you don't just, you come out to yourself, you come out to friends and family, you come out to acquaintances, and then there's essentially, with performers, there's a public coming out or a constant public coming out. So it's kind of like, I guess the question is kind of what was that journey for you? And then also, were you aware of this journey while you were knee deep in the church stuff?
Yeah. Granted, yeah, like people are like, when did you come out? And it's like an everyday thing, right? If you're at the grocery store and you're buying flowers and they're like, oh, is this for your boyfriend? And you're like, no, it's for my girlfriend. Or do you just not come out? Like it's always, it could be like a
It's
daily.
a yeah, it's a decision that you have to make constantly where it's just like, am I safe here to say like, yes, this is for my girlfriend?
Right.
Or is it like, oh, they're just for myself or for my boyfriend or whatever? Or do you use the word partner so that, it's a technically true and you're not disrespecting your relationship, but you're also not putting yourself in necessarily like a situation.
Right. Yeah. So when I was 9 and 10, like I remember like sleepovers, I would, make out with friends and, do like, same sex. And it was never other sex, it was always girls. So that was interesting. But then pretty much it wasn't a thing. Like I think I was more just so focused on being a student leader and being a good girlfriend and all that stuff. It wasn't like something that was like an internal struggle for me, I guess, if you will, through high school. And then in college, I ended up immediately in an abusive relationship where I was very controlled by a partner, a male partner. And, so then after that relationship ended, I joined a sorority, which is a great place to find gals. And then, and
Don't tell them all the stereotypes are true.
yeah. But then, and it was honestly my first like. I even like if you read through my journal and where I was deliberating over like, am I gay or am I, what's going on with me was after college because there was like a gal that we were very, very close. And so yeah, so I ended up I don't know if you know the show Mortified where people read from their journal, but I just gave them my journals and was like, you tell me what you want me to read. And because I did a Morta Pride show, and so like where I was sort of like waffling and figuring out, I don't know, my way. But there was never a point where I was like, mom, I'm bisexual. I think she probably heard me talk about it in comedy, like on stage, or my brother and sister too, like kind of that. Like I've always been more casual about it. But I think it's because I have had this sort of separate life since I was 17. And then I've been heavily involved, working in higher ed. Then I became one of the people who was like an allies trainer with like our safe space program and sort of working with our queer kids and queer community and stuff like that. So I don't know if I'm fully answering your question.
Yeah, you are.
And then, yeah. And what really sucked about it was I got accidentally pregnant when I was 23, which ended up, that's why I got married, which is real stupid. I ended up having a miscarriage, but we still had the wedding set. So it was like, let's prove to everybody that's not why we were getting married, and still got married because I was, when you're 23, you're brilliant. And so then I was like in this monogamous relationship, but then definitely when I was drinking, I would end up like making out with other gals and stuff, which he didn't seem to mind. But yeah, so, and then I was married for 9 years. So, and ended up having 2 kids. Like after being married for 6 years is when the reproduction started. And that's a real hamper on dating is having babies. But yeah, so after I finally left, my kids were 2 and 3. That gave me the opportunity to just like slut it up when they were like away. So,
yeah, I assumed.
yeah, no. Yeah, so then I don't know, I've and it's been, now they're 14 and 12, right? So it's been over a decade that I've been able to really do what I want. Or who I want.
No, I always think that's kind of cool. That's why I try to ask the question as like a layered question, because I think it's cool when, you didn't necessarily have to have this like coming out moment where you're just like going through life and you're like, this is who I'm dating now. And, and that's the coming out moment. Cause that's how, eventually I'd like it to be more like that, where it's not just, oh, I have to, mom, dad, I have something to tell you, that it could just be like, this is who I'm dating right now. And this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And I mean, they're pretty pretty racist in my household. So it was more like I was threatened if I brought home a person of color, like that I would have my legs broken or my arms broken or things like that.
Damn.
Yeah. And so I was like, what if I brought home a Black woman? But that's the thing, is like, I would never want to, like, yeah, like even taking someone home, like it's never been like I need the approval of my parents, or like I just because, yeah, that's always been a weird kind of situation. My stepdad's real terrible. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah.
But you got out.
I escaped. And yeah, and it gives me the opportunity to raise my kids. Like one of them identifies as queer and as pansexual actually. And but even like when they were little, they would interchange like boyfriends or girlfriends, like when they were talking about other people and their partners. And we've gone to like the Guess Who's Gay panel, like during National Coming Out Week and stuff like that. And they know trans people, and they, so I've tried to, I was hoping I might end up with an intersex kid, because I was like, I'll do right by this child.
No, it's so great that they have, because that's one of the things I talk about with a lot of folks, is that like we didn't have as children even the language, like even, and not necessarily like labels, just the language on, or the idea that queer existed in the first place. Like a lot of people were unaware that everyone wasn't just hetero and everything wasn't just heteronormative.
Right.
So kids now, especially with an open-minded parent, like they get to have the tools to say I'm pansexual at a young age, and to know that their mom is going to be like, great, and if that changes or if you're still figuring things out, also great.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I see my role as being like bumper cars. Like, I'm not trying to make you, I'm trying to, give you your space to be who you are. But obviously offer guidance. But yeah, for Halloween, my kid went to a virtual party, like through the Oculus, like through a VR headset with like a queer kid virtual party, and was like super looking forward to it. So that's neat too, that there's these other places where community is available to them in ways that certainly was not when we were kids,
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I just think that's so great. And then, I did want to talk about, because you are a published author now.
I am.
What made you say like, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to go on a book tour and I'm going to do an audible recording of this book? What was that journey?
So my whole life, like writing, that's really like, I would love to be sustained from my writing, like financially sustained, which is kind of a crazy thing. But, I got awards in junior high and all this stuff. Like for my English, I was the editor of our literary magazine in high school. In junior high, I even started an advice column for our newspaper, and I had to write the letters for advice and answer them because I was just starting it. So it's always been like a dream, and the easiest way for me to get in, I mean, obviously in the world today, anybody can self-publish. Everybody can do that now. So what I did for about 8 years was I compiled quotes from my boys, because I started posting them on social media, and I was getting all kinds of feedback where people were like, oh my God, the quotes from your boys. And so finally I ended up just downloading all of my social media and searching for like those quotes and whatnot, collating them, and then put together this book, Mom, What is the Opposite of Guacamole? Which is 13 chapters of their different personalities or personae of, kind of the categories of shit they said. And so it's been really well received. And the whole Audible thing, or like recording an audiobook, it hadn't occurred to me, but because of the pandemic in 2020, a lot of people turned to audiobooks. And so that's where a lot of authors are actually making their money now. And so I was like, how do I capitalize on that, which I have yet to do so. So please buy the book because I needed the money back that I've invested. But we went into the studio, and it's actually the boys' voices recording their quotes. So it's really cool. It's really endearing. Yeah, and the tour was just me being like, I need to publicize this. And I was hoping like to get different, SEO, like in different parts of the country, people Googling and whatnot. And it was also a great way to go do comedy. I sat next to a farm stand in Maine selling my book. I did pizza parties in Virginia. I did a whole bunch of different stuff, which was kind of a test too of what I can handle and if I can do these things. And it was so rewarding and so amazing. And so I want to do more of that. And I really want to publish memoirs and essays. But this was like a baby step so that I could learn from this experience. And so I'm proud of it, but I definitely am hungry for more.
Good. Stay hungry. Stay hungry. Well, thanks so much, Kelly, for sitting down with us and talking with us. And can you let everyone know where to find you, where to find your book, where to find whatever you want us to find?
Yeah. So I have a website, kellystone.org, because being a single mom is like being in a nonprofit. And so you can find all of my social media and my book and all that stuff there. I will say that it is more profitable for me for you to order the book directly from me and I'll ship it to you versus through Amazon because there's a lot of middlemen in the way.
Yeah, Amazon has enough money. Amazon has enough money. Go directly to Kelly.
Yeah. And the audiobook is on 42 different platforms. So you can find it in that way, but it's called Mom, What is the Opposite of Guacamole? Yeah, that would be the best way to support me and my family right now is through purchasing several copies of my book.
I am for everyone you know.
Somebody in Chicago just ordered 5 hard copies. So yeah,
Perfect.
happy to do that.
Be like that person in Chicago. Well, thanks so much, Kelly, for being part of the Near and Queer to My Heart family. And hopefully I'll see you soon at some point.
Yeah, there's a new show coming up in New Orleans that I think I'm going to be on. Return of the Stupid Bitch. So I'm excited.
I'm down. Yeah, cool. Well, I'll see you then.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda.
Stay tuned for a sample of Kelly's book, read by her children.
Mom, why do they have cake at funerals?
Mom, are these military bunk beds actually from the military?
Yep.
Then they've definitely been puked on.
Mom, if your stomach was more in and your boobs were more out, you'd look really pretty.
Mom, thanks for getting us this trampoline. It was exactly what was missing from our bedroom.
Mom, what time do you want to go skinny dipping in the full moon for your birthday?
Mom, did you know that girls say more words than boys?
Mom, this breakfast burrito is delicious. Have they invented something called a lunch burrito?
Mom, did you know that on the other side of the world, a pizza just got baked?
Mom, you're just throwing tacos at me.
Here, Mom. For your birthday, here's some candy we had at the house. Also, we filled your laptop with water.
Mom, hurry, I want to get outside to play in the Denver snow before it melts. Mom, I wish 3rd grade wasn't like a thing, you know? I mean, why can't I just like get a house and stuff already?
Thank you to Kelly Stone for sharing her world with us. Special thank you to Ryan Golub for creating our theme song. Social media with us. Near and Queer to My Heart on Instagram and Facebook, Queer to My Heart on Twitter. If you like what you hear, 5-star review on Apple. Follow us, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Let's show some love to each other because that's what life's all about, right? Thank y'all so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.